With our database tables in place, we are now ready to create our entities. Now we can create these entities manually, but to speed things up, we'll be using JPA Buddy. Now, if you didn't watch the first part of the course, JPA Buddy is a plugin that we installed in IntelliJ. If you don't have it, go to the settings, then under plugins, under marketplace, search for JPA Buddy. Install this so you can quickly generate entities from your database schema. Now, back to our project. We right-click the entities directory and go to new JPA entities from DB. Up here, we have our database connection. That is correct. Here we can see the package use entities. Good. Now, down here, you can see the tables for which we don't have entities. So we have cart items, carts, flyway, schema history, and wish list. Obviously, we don't care about flyway schema history because that's used internally by Flyway. Also, we don't need an entity for the wishlist table because we modeled this using a many-to-many relationship between the user and product entities. So let's select the cart items and carts tables. Now let's review each mapping. So for the cart entity, here we have two fields, ID that is defined as a string. This is not what we want. We want to change this to UUID. Then we also have date created that is defined as a local date. Now here under references, we can see our relationships. By default, they are not checked. So let's check this. And this will add a field called cart items. That will be a one-to-many relationship to the cart item entity. Now let's review the cart item entity. So here we have ID that is defined as long, cart that is an instance of the cart entity, product that is an instance of the product entity, and quantity that is defined as integer. Good. Let's go ahead. Okay. Now, in the first part of the course, I told you that with the database first workflow, our entities can be cleaner because we can get rid of all the annotations that are about database schema. So let's start from the top and review these annotations. For our entity, we have getter, setter, entity, and table. Pretty standard. Now, you might ask, hey, Mosh, can we combine getter and setter into data? No, you shouldn't. Because data also implements the toString method, and that can potentially cause issues with lazy loaded fields. So for entities, do not use data, use getter and setter. Now for the ID field, we have the ID and generated value annotations, pretty straightforward. Now we also have column for specifying the column name, but here we don't need the nullable attribute because this is defined in our database schema. So let's clean up our code. Next, for our cart field, the type is the cart entity, but I don't like this fully qualified name, so let's simplify this. Now, we don't need the not null attribute because we'll add validation attributes to our DTOs, not to our entities. So let's delete this. Next, we have many to one. Now, fetching strategy is set to lazy. This doesn't really make sense because with relationships where we have one entity on one end of a relationship, it's often better to use eager loading. So I'm not sure why JPA Buddy is suggesting that. Let's remove it. We can always come back and revisit it. Also, we don't need optional. Let's simplify the code. Similarly, we don't need onDelete because we implemented Cascade at the database level. So delete. We need join column with the name attribute. And again, we don't need nullable because this is defined in our database schema. Now for the product field, again, let's remove not null. Let's remove the fetch strategy and optional, as well as onDelete and nullable from the join column annotation. Now for quantity, again, we don't need not null. We don't need a default value. This is defined in the database. And we don't need nullable either. Just the column name is all we need, okay? Now on the top, let's clean up our import statements. Good. Next, let's review our cart entity. So for our cart entity, we have those standard annotations. This is good. Now for the ID field, we have the ID annotation. Good. We don't need the size annotation. Remove. We don't need column default. Instead, we should add generated value and set the strategy to UUID. So we are telling Hibernate that the value for this field will be generated by the database, and this will be a UUID, okay? Now, I just realized that the ID field is declared as a string, even though we change it to UUID. It looks like a bug in JPA Buddy, so let's change that to UUID. Good. Now, for the column attribute, we don't need nullable and length. Good. Next, we have date created. Again, we don't need not null. We don't need the default value, and we don't need the nullable attribute. Now, similar to the ID field, the value of this field is generated by the database, but here we cannot apply the generated value annotation because this is only used for primary keys or fields that are annotated with the ID annotation. So for this, we have to set two extra attributes in the column annotation, and that is insertable, we set it to false, and updatable, this should be false as well. With this, we are telling Hibernate to ignore this field when generating SQL statements. Okay? And finally, we have the cart items field, which is declared as a set of cart item. Good. Now let's go to the top and clean up our import statements. Good. We're done with this step. Next, we're going to implement our first API endpoint for creating a shopping cart.